The first word that comes to mind with the case that we're going to talk about today is terror. Imagine planning to take your children on a trip to the beach before school starts and looking forward to a fun few days. But what would actually happen was a nightmare, and for the family, their pain is just as strong 31 years later. Let's talk about Pamela June Ray. Pamela June Ray was a 36-year-old devoted wife and mother of a young son and daughter. She was very close with her parents as well as her brothers and sister and lived a happy, seemingly normal life in Villa Rica, Georgia. With Panama City Beach, Florida being a favorite vacation spot, Pam wanted to take her children to the beach for a few days before they started school. However, the trip would not go as planned. According to newspaper reports, Pam had phoned ahead the night before to see about a room. Tim Hairston, the manager of the Wilhite Motel, recounted a call before 7 p.m. the night before Pam was to arrive in town. He said he told Pam there would be a room open the next morning by 9 or 10 a.m. She said that would be fine and she'd be there in the morning. According to Pam's family, though, she left her brother's house about 10:30 p.m. for the approximately 6-hour drive to Panama City Beach, which would have gotten her there well before the time her room was to be ready. No one knows exactly why she left early, but it's assumed she just wanted to drive during a time when her children could sleep during the trip. Pam arrived at Panama City Beach on August 12, 1992. There were various newspaper reports that mentioned her knocking on doors of hotels in the immediate vicinity that were either closed or had no vacancy, but the following is what comes from eyewitness accounts. Pam is seen at 4:30 a.m. and parks her 91 blue Plymouth Sundance at the Wilhite Motel. She is again seen in her car by witnesses at 5 a.m. At around 5:25 a.m., a police officer on patrol drives by the Wilhite and reports seeing Pam standing in her car talking to an unknown white male. He says he watches Pam lock her car and with key in hand follows the unknown man to the nearby parking area close to the pool. A few minutes later, guests reportedly hear screams of "help me" and "save me," but no one phoned police. So for roughly 3 hours, Pam is missing and no one knows. Around 8:30 a.m., a motel employee noticed Pam's children left unattended in her car, and the police were notified. The children, who had been asleep, didn't know what happened. Pam's purse, car keys, and traveler's checks were all still in the car, but their mother was gone. The search for Pamela June Ray then began. The rain proved to be a huge hindrance in the immediate search for Pamela June Ray. By looking up reports, it rained 2 inches the day she went missing and 4 inches the next day. If Pam were abducted in the parking area as thought, heavy rain shortly after that would have washed away any evidence if there was anything left behind. Police checked every motel room in the immediate area. Pam's family immediately flew to Panama City Beach as soon as they heard their loved one was missing. The family scoured the area searching for her, handing out flyers and putting up signs in their desperate attempt to find her. Some of the family members would even appear on the Sally Jesse Raphael talk show, and others were interviewed on Unsolved Mysteries in the months after she went missing. Although the shows warranted leads and calls to the authorities, nothing panned out to help find Pam. There was a report of a man in a striped shirt who was sitting on a folding chair outside the Wilhite Motel in the hours before Pam went missing. His name is believed to be Andrew Paul Henry, and he is now deceased. The police had known him and had trouble with him prior, involving an alleged attack on a female where he was arrested, and when the woman's story had a few mistakes, he was then released. No one has reported seeing him with Pam, but with him being in the same area and his previous run-ins with the law, possibly even involving assaulting a random female, it is something worth mentioning. I do want to clarify something that isn't relevant to Pam's disappearance, but unfortunately is always brought up in any articles about her. It's about the legal troubles the family had found themselves in a few years before Pam went missing. I wanted to put it out there and do away with any confusion or any thought that it had something to do with this tragic case. According to Pam's sister, the bank mistakenly wired $400,000 into the account of the family's company. She also said her father, Ralph Bennett, was owed money from the government for work he had done for them in his trucking company and had convinced himself it was from them. After leaving the money sit there for a while, her father then started to spend it. Rhonda says no money was given directly to any family members, but a condo was purchased in Panama City Beach with the funds. When the bank finally discovered the error and got the police involved, Ralph Bennett was charged with theft of mislaid property. He pled guilty in 1989, received 10 years probation, and was ordered to pay back $405,000. He had already paid about $300,000 of it back to the bank, but when the payments got behind, the DA grew frustrated and decided to charge the entire family, who were all listed as owners of the company, with theft. There were 6 family members in all who were indicted, Pamela June Ray being one of them, but they were never officially charged and their records were expunged. Ralph Bennett did spend around 30 days in jail as well, and the matter was eventually resolved. Now we'll mention another missing person case briefly as it ties into this story. Donna Callahan disappeared from a convenience store in Gulf Breeze, Florida in 1989. We're going to go into her disappearance and some others in the next podcast more in depth, but I want to mention that Alex Wells did eventually confess to her murder, as well as implicating his half-brother Mark Reeby in the crime. Reeby would then go on to speak with police and did actually confess to murdering others, including Pamela June Ray. His description of the crime was, in a word, chilling. Mark Reeby talked about the events of that night in a recorded confession. He said he had just got a workman's comp settlement and wanted to go to Panama City Beach. He had $300 to $400 with him and first goes to a strip club. He is snorting cocaine, smoking marijuana, and popping Valium while drinking beer and tequila that night, then starts going from bar to bar. He eventually runs out of money, but wanted to stay in a motel to sleep it off, so he decides he's going to find someone to rob so he can pay for it. He says he prefers to target a visitor because they usually have money on them. He encountered Pamela in the parking lot of the motel. He said she was little and pretty with her hair pulled back and thinks she was from Georgia. He didn't know her children were nearby in the car, and she never mentioned them. I will spare you some of the more graphic details, but here's an excerpt from the actual confession. Special thanks to Dustin Scoggins for reading it.
I slipped my knife out of my pocket and popped it open real quick, and I grabbed her. Throwing my hand up around her neck, pulled her to me and threw my right hand up to her neck. And she made, it wasn't what you'd call a real loud scream, but she made some noise. I told her to shut up. If she made another sound, then I would kill her, right then and right there. All I wanted to do was rob her. I wanted some money.
Pamela told him she didn't have any money, and upon hearing that, he went into a rage and strangled her. He then claims he undressed her and threw her clothes into a dumpster. He drives around with her in the truck for a while and then finds an area of beach where he thinks no one will see him. He then cuts her neck and picked her up and walked her into the Gulf. His reason for the cut being so there would be blood in the water, hopefully attracting a shark to the remains. I also want to point out that there are 2 different versions of Mark Reeby's confession to Pamela June Ray's murder. In the second version, he actually implicates his then-wife Vicky of helping with the crime. He states the 2 were out partying when they ran out of money and decided to find someone to rob, even stating that Vicky drove the car. In that version, he was in a car, not a truck. Retired FDLE agent Dennis Haley told me that Mark Reeby changed his confession about putting her in the water when he was confronted by law enforcement about how the tides would have brought Pam's body back in the first version, and he then stated he buried her in Point, Washington. Another interesting fact is that, according to Agent Haley, Vicky actually failed the polygraph concerning the crime, and the polygraph examiner said, in his professional opinion, that she was there and participated. When asked by Haley what was something about the crime that only the killer would know, he said that Pamela had a single key in her hand. Rhonda did say that Pamela was known to carry a single key with her at times. Mark Reeby does have enough specific details about that morning and the circumstances that Haley believes it is accurate that he committed the murder, but as far as how it actually happened, who was involved, and where Pamela's remains are is sadly still unknown. I want to talk a bit about Pamela June Ray's father. His efforts were tireless in searching for his beloved daughter. He would travel from Georgia to Panama City Beach for days and weeks at a time, just searching for her. He would attach decals to his car with a phone number and her photo, mentioning a $10,000 reward he had personally put up for information concerning her whereabouts. His family would have to beg him to come home, as his only focus was bringing his daughter home. Speaking of Pam's family, we're now going to talk to someone from her family who has worked tirelessly to keep her story out there, and that is Pamela's sister, Rhonda Bishop. Hello, Rhonda, and welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. So I will say I first saw mention of you on the internet in regards to the Pamela June Ray case, which is why I contacted you to speak with me when writing my article a few years ago. You were so kind and willing to speak with me and do whatever it takes to get justice for your sister's disappearance. We did a lot of work on this case back in 2019 as I did research for my article and were able to get a little more attention for it. Sadly, so often I feel like these missing people get to be known only by the circumstances of their disappearance. So tell me about your childhood growing up with Pam. I know that you came from a close-knit and loving family. How would you describe your sister?
She was a good sister. We laughed, we cried, we fought, and laughed some more. When she was older, she was forced to let me tag along a few times.
Yeah.
But she really didn't like that at all. But
Yeah.
I did.
How much of an age difference was there?
There was a 5-year age difference.
Okay.
So I was quite the handful as well.
I can imagine. Now, your sister was married and had 2 children, correct?
That is correct. Shane 12 and Brandy 5.
Okay, so that was their ages when she went missing.
Yes.
Was it normal for Pam to go to Panama City Beach with her kids?
It was normal for us to take off on a weekend. I did it. I was a single mom. Pam, of course, was married, but her husband had a golf tournament that weekend. And that weekend happened to be the week, like a few weeks before Brandy was starting to school. So it was her first time going to school, and Pam just wanted to take her on a little vacation before school started.
Okay, so in the past you had made the trip with her before.
I have.
Yeah. So take me back to the day before and your last visit with your sister. What do you remember about it?
The day before, Pam came over and she said goodbye and said she was going down. I said, I'm sorry I can't go with you. But I was a single mom and school was fixing to start. So she hugged us. She told us she loved us.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it.
Yeah. What is the first time you heard about her being missing?
The next day, I was in the kitchen of my mother's house. Our office was in the basement. I was in the kitchen making some lunch or doing laundry, whatever. And the phone rang. And I was there by myself because my mom was at the beauty shop. My dad was out on a run. And the phone rang and the person said that my sister was missing and that they have her children. So I had to gather my thoughts and figure out what to do next.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It's a race for time.
So how many of the family members all went there right then?
Well, me and Mike flew there. I got in touch with him at work.
And that's Pam's husband, right, Mike?
Pam's husband.
Okay.
He was at work. I got in touch with him. We met at the airport and flew to Panama City. We were the first ones there. And then my brothers, Tony and Tommy, they showed up later as they had to drive down. And Mike's mom, Nancy, came to watch Shane and Brandy while we did whatever we needed to do.
How were the children when you found them? I'm sure they were very confused.
The children were fine. They were very confused. They had no idea what happened. It was raining so bad. Yeah. And it was raining on them, and they said that's what woke them up, along with someone knocking on the window asking, "Where's their mom?"
Yeah.
And they had no idea.
So we've talked about Mark Reeby confessing to Pam's murder. Now, the listeners might be interested to know that you've written and received letters back from Mark in the past. What do you usually say to him, and what does he say in response?
I literally beg him to just let me know where she's at, where her body is. He's already told my dad that he killed her. Yeah. That's the statement that I believe. That's the statement that I'll take to the grave.
Yeah. And what is his reaction to your request to have an in-person visit at the prison?
I don't think he would ever own up to seeing me.
Yeah. So he's refused when you've offered to go meet him in person.
Yes, he has refused. But I would love nothing more than to sit in front of him, eye to eye, and let him feed me all the bull crap he's fed everybody else.
Yeah, you deserve that.
I do.
Does he deny murdering your sister when in the letters when he replies?
He does.
Does he?
He does. He recanted everything that he said. He said they made him say it. They didn't make him get on the phone with my dad.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. I'd mentioned earlier that about your father and his tireless efforts to find Pam. Now, there's a situation where, let me set the scene. When your father was in Panama City Beach area, he was visiting Mark Reeby's mother, Patsy Wells, and she was always very sympathetic and kind towards your family. Now, I know while your father was there, Reeby actually phoned his mother from prison, and Mark's mother insisted that her son talk to your father and tell him what he had done to Pam. So what did he say to your father, and what was your father's reaction?
I'm sure my father fell to the floor. I wasn't there with him, so I don't really know. But Mark said, "Mr. Bennett, I killed your daughter." He told him that he killed his daughter.
Now, your father actually died a few months after that, correct?
He did. November the 16th.
And it was a heart attack, or as some would say, a broken heart, possibly.
Yeah. I feel, they say a heart attack, I feel a broken heart.
Yeah. When did you...
His heart...
Go ahead.
His heart, as well as my mom's, were broken.
Yeah.
Shattered.
So, when did you first find out about Mark's confession to your sister's murder, and what was your reaction?
As soon as he got off the phone with Mark, he called my mother and I.
And that's the first time you'd heard of it?
That would have been the first time that I heard of it.
So I think my listeners would be interested to know that you've actually had a pleasant relationship with the Mark Reeby family over the years. Tell us about that and how you came to meet them.
Well, when my dad would go down there, he would visit them, and when he came home, he was like, it's not about them. They didn't do it. They're just caught up in the circumstance. It's Mark.
Yeah.
So I went down and I met them and I fell in love with them.
Yeah.
They were good people. They were friendly. And I really liked him. I love Jelena to death.
Yeah. And they're as upset as anyone about what he's done.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And they don't like it. I don't like it being pushed on their family.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you would like the listeners to know about your sister and about this case?
The only thing that anyone needs to know is I need to get her home.
Yeah. To lie her next to her parents, correct? That have both passed away?
That is correct.
Yeah. Rhonda, it is and has always been a pleasure to talk to you about this case. I truly hope you can find answers and some semblance of justice for your sister. Take care and we'll stay in touch.
Okay, thank you so much, Heather.
In another twist in this case, in 2000, a search dog seemingly uncovered other human remains in the area near where Donna Callahan's body was found. At the time, it was speculated that it could be Pam's remains. A very well-known cadaver dog, Eagle, and his handler, Sandra Anderson, were the ones at the scene when these were discovered. However, a few years after the search, it was discovered that Anderson was actually planting human bones for Eagle to find in an apparent effort to garner more attention. Sandra Anderson did plead guilty in 2004 to 5 felonies related to the fraud and was sentenced to 21 months in prison, restitution, and probation. Sadly, it is unclear which of Eagle's discoveries were legit and which were manipulated by his handler. I wanted to mention that a friend of mine who is working on a project was able to briefly speak with Pamela's son Shane recently. He prefers to leave the tragic situation of his mother in the past and didn't want to get involved, but was willing to answer some questions she asked about the disappearance to clarify. Some of these recollections differ a bit from newspaper accounts of the time, but he actually lived through the nightmare, so I certainly don't doubt his statement. He remembers the night before going to his uncle's house. The family had tried to get Pamela to wait and leave in the morning, but she insisted on driving through the night so as to avoid a lot of traffic. He said him and his sister were woke up when they were on the Hathaway Bridge and remembered his mother saying, "We're here." She locked the car and went to check in, and it being so early in the morning, the 2 children quickly fell back to sleep. He said the windows were cracked and eventually the rain woke them up. He didn't hear any screams and, of course, didn't understand where his mother could be. He also doesn't recall his mother having a single key. He believes she locked the car with the keys inside and would just instruct the children to unlock the car for her when she got back. Now is the time for my thoughts on this case. I do definitely think this was a crime of opportunity. Pamela was in a vulnerable position at a time where it was the dark of night and seemingly no witnesses would be around. I believe she was murdered that night in a random act of violence. The story of the man in the striped shirt is interesting, but ultimately I tend to think Mark Reeby is guilty of the crime. The specific details about the key, and even his wording about the sound she made that night, seemed to me like the words of someone who is thinking back to the attack and not making it up at the time. He has already been convicted of one murder, so we know he is capable of it. He was also known to frequent Panama City Beach and lived in a nearby town at the time. It has been 31 years and still no definite answers. The Wilhite Motel building that Pam parked in front of that night is still standing and now is called the Blue Water Inn. The family has come to terms with the fact that their loved one is gone, but they would love to have closure so Pam's deceased parents can rest in peace. Rhonda continues to be devoted to her sister's case and hopes the family can one day have answers to what happened. The only hope is that someone can come forward or possibly even confess again to the crime and lead authorities to her body so she can be laid to rest next to her parents. It's a chilling case that honestly could have happened to any of us. One has to wonder if anything sinister would have occurred that night if Pam hadn't heard the words, "No vacancy." So that concludes the case of the disappearance of Pamela June Ray. However, we are not done talking about Mark Reeby. Not even close. The next episode we will go in depth into the confessions of Mark Reeby. We will also talk to someone who is well known to the killer who doesn't usually talk openly about this uncomfortable subject, but has agreed to speak with me. She has an interesting story to tell. We're also going to talk to someone who is working on a new, very interesting project that ties into this topic and the cases we will cover in the next podcast. Until then, you can find my podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio listed as one word, Lost and Found Podcast. Please subscribe to make sure you don't miss any content, and feel free to leave me a rating or review if you enjoyed listening. I hope to have a new episode released every 2 weeks. You can send me an email at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo.com. And as always, you can also find all of my original articles on my website at Lost and Found Blogs. And remember that cold cases stay cold because their story stops getting told.